Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among other things. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at Ethereum Classic. I just like to visit this from time to time again because I have a really large community based on this, as well as the fact that I get constant requests to cover Ethereum Classic. So we really want to know where we're going to be at here in X amount of months, years, etc. And we're going to answer that here for you today. Furthermore, this is just technical analysis. There's no fundamentals here. I'm not a financial advisor either. Always want to recommend that you do your own research. But just bear in mind that I have years of trading experience, and my goal here is to help you trade for a lifetime and not just for one day. Now, I do have a signal group I'm going to release here very, very soon, likely the next couple of days, regarding just good signals, good entry points, helping you find best practice, as well as the fact that I know that you don't have a ton of time throughout the day. I have more time myself personally, and I can find these things here for you. So that's the whole goal of that, because my community asked me to go ahead and do a signal group. So I'm just giving you what you want. So thank you again for requesting that I cover that. That'll be available in my premium Patreon account very soon. Also doing live streams on the weekend, as well as the fact that I have $25 in Bitcoin available from Voyager in the description below if you're interested in that as well. So a lot of good opportunities here. So stick around, you'll learn a thing or two. And without further ado, just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum Classic. And just before we do, we're going to take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, just to get a baseline of the market. So if you are new to the channel, you'll help understand the big picture by looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum first. And it really gives you a better option to understand best practice and obviously making sure that you make an informed decision. So we're going to take a look at all that if you're new to the channel, just kind of as a preface there to ensure we know kind of what's going on with the market. Now, first things first, I always look at the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. So, simply put, this is what we're looking at here. So if you take a look at Bitcoin, we can see, and let's go ahead and turn this on, the moving averages, what happened here. Now, unfortunately, they're both working as resistance lines right now. We had a nice support level with the 200, but the problem that happened, and in case you're not familiar with that, the one-day chart really screwed us over here. We got this death cross. Anytime the 50-day moving average comes down and intersects with the 200, it more often than not will cause the price action to drop. And the reason why is just because the 50 is notorious for driving the price action down, and it's already working, in conjunction with the 200, and essentially that keeps the price underneath. All right, so that's the concept. So oftentimes the whales will just sell outright. So the best time to short would have been roughly 8 hours ago. Thankfully, I was able to catch that, and I'm going to include that in my signal group. But generally speaking, that's kind of the concept, right? That's kind of what you're looking for. It doesn't happen all that often. This won't happen again for some time, but it does happen, and that's the main reason. So, commonly I look at the 4-hour chart, and these usually work very well as support levels. At least they should have in this case, but unfortunately, the powers that be said no. So that's where we're at there. There is a major support at 30,000, 35,500, and 42,000. There is a tentative support level, resistance level at 41,000, but we'll bridge that gap when we get there again. So we'll probably won't see that for a couple of days, but it just depends on how strong Bitcoin does recover. We do have a pretty decent little recovery starting here today. All right, so that is Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is effectively a very similar scenario, only a little bit lower, which is odd, right? Or at least it's becoming a normal place, right? Unfortunately. But normally I would say that it is odd for Ethereum to do poorly when Bitcoin goes sideways, which we've seen recently. But with all the manipulation in the market and just a lot of indecision, Ethereum, those who want to invest in Ethereum are very cautious right now. And I get that. But unfortunately, it's causing the price to be very low and very affordable too. So it's good and bad, depending on how you look at it. So, obviously you got some bags to throw at this, wouldn't hurt, but nonetheless, we are working against the clock, or an uphill battle, for lack of better terms, probably a better way to describe it, because we've got the 50-day moving average at about 2,400, the 200s coming down around 2,600, and a major resistance has been tested 10 times at 2,900. So Ethereum is not in good shape. I would say it's in the doghouse. It's like kind of taking its time out here and just waiting for the market to figure it out. But I can tell you that as soon as Bitcoin comes up to 41, 42,000 and breaks 42, I think we're going to see Ethereum take off, and there's going to be a lot more confidence in the market, and Ethereum is more often than not the go-to coin for a lot of folks. that's kind of what we're looking at there for Ethereum. Now here is Ethereum Classic. It does look very similar in a lot of ways, right? If we see and we look at the moving averages. So, it kind of looks very similar in a lot of ways, but let's go ahead and look at the 1-day chart first, get kind of a big picture here, because I think it's important to look at the big picture and work your way down. So 1-day chart, here we have no death cross, no crosses at all. In fact, these two lines are pretty platonic. There's nothing going on. So, good news is we're over the 200, but bad news is we're under the 50 on the 1-day chart, but the RSI is very low, and it is essentially considered affordable right now. Something to also note as well with the RSI, we do have somewhat of a support level at 40. So I don't know if you know this, but the RSI has little support and resistance levels within it. Oftentimes it's like 45 and 55, depending on the top or bottom side. But 40 appears to be a pretty consistent place in which the RSI is bouncing off. So it basically just means that, we do have a support level. We shouldn't expect to see Ethereum Classic go any lower, because even as low as everything's gone with Bitcoin, it's tested the, basically $40 range twice and rejected to correct itself back up to where the price action is now at about 51, 52. So to me, if I was a gambling man, which I'm not, if I was though, I would venture to guess that Ethereum Classic will not go much lower. Granted, Bitcoin sub 33,000, different story. But if we can keep Bitcoin 34 to 38,000 and eventually test 42 and break above, then yeah, we're going to see Ethereum Classic do some things. But between now and then, it's probably just a whole lot of kind of just boring, ridiculous, stupid stuff here. I don't know. I don't have much to say here positive about this, because these are just, these are technicals you don't really want to see. But again, this is a 1-day chart. So let's see if we can find anything better at the 4-hour. Okay. So again, back to this here, we are working underneath the 50. It is effectively a resistance, same with the 200. But good news is if we can get, some kind of price action soon, this would swing up and that would swing down. Or, just say, for example, this will continue out like this, whereas this come up, and that's considered to be a golden cross. Again, it's kind of a stretch. You see what you want to see sometimes, but that could potentially drive the price up or help it carry through, and that is just something you might see in a technical chart. And here's the funny thing too. Again, that's how interesting it is, because when it comes to death cross or the inverse with a golden cross, if you look at this here, this is a plain as day a death cross, right? That's what happens with a death cross. Or correction, that's the inverse of what should happen on a death cross, right? The price should come down, but instead it blasted right through and continued upwards. Okay, so again, you don't want to put a ton of weight in the whole death cross, golden cross scenario, unless it's the 1-day chart. The 1-day chart that does have the most validity, because it takes a while to get there, and that does happen. But on the 4-hour chart, I wouldn't put be really overly concerned with that. Pay more attention to the 1-day chart in that scenario. Anyways, that's the 4-hour. Not much to really note on the RSI, kind of standard. It's pretty low right now, which we're used to. So I wouldn't worry about that. Let's look at the Ichimoku Cloud. I'm curious as to how this is trending right now. We're probably still under. Yep. But until we come over, we're going to be in a scenario where we want to probably wait. So if you're new to the channel and or the Ichimoku Cloud, it's a really good indicator to help us understand generally buy signals or sell signals, right? So when the price is under the cloud, it's essentially considered a shorting sign, a sell signal. So as you can see here, the price just continued to go down. Now, if you do the inverse and you look at the, when the price goes above, for example, you're typically supposed to invest when the price goes above the cloud, because that's considered a buy signal. Right? So it went up, obviously came down and tested, but this is a pure state of indecision from Bitcoin. So there's been a lot of volatility in that sense, or just the knee-jerk actions for what happens with Bitcoin. Every other coin does. But the general consensus here, if you can see, every time it drops below the cloud, and there are really good shorting opportunities. So in that sense, with everything kind of being quote unquote bearish, that is a good signal to sell, right? But if the price can just say, continue up and kind of do one of these, this would be a consideration of a buy signal. Okay, so just pay attention to that. And again, another thing to understand on the Ichimoku Cloud, it's most effective on the 1-hour chart. It can be used in other time frames, don't get wrong, but I've noticed the most consistency with the 1-hour chart. So if you're going to use it, just pay attention to the cloud alone, because there is a ton of stuff going on with these indicators. Like you could literally turn on all the, they have a lot of different, these are basically like a MACD, these two right here, this is moving averages, and this is essentially a signal line. This is supposed to signal when you're supposed to buy and or sell. So hypothetically, if you're going long right now, when this line intersects, that's when you sell. Anyways, there's a lot you can learn on that. I would recommend checking that out at another time. That's essentially what you're looking at there. And let's just quickly take a look at the Tom DeMark sequential and see kind of what's going on here with this guy, because this one does help us understand, exhaustion. As we can kind of see, you always want to look for nines, and what's interesting, it did signal it here. So right here, we had a state of exhaustion here. When we hit the 9, there was a reversal. So oftentimes when you have 9 bars closing in a row, again, there's an equation that goes into this. I don't have enough time to explain it, but when you see a 9, it has a tendency of reversing. The 9s don't always happen, but if you see here, we have a 9 there. It did reverse back upwards. We have a 9 that's coming back up again. It doesn't have to hold or continue on forever, but if we keep getting, just say this one is higher, basically this bar has to be higher than the fourth bar behind it in order to kind of signal the next number. So if we can get a 7, 8, 9 right here, then there's a chance that we might see the price come back down. It might be just a small decrease and then back up. We might see higher highs and higher lows. But again, that's just something to note with Tom DeMark sequential. All right, so let's just go ahead and go to the 15, and we'll look at kind of my more favorite indicators, the ones that are a little more consistent with the price action. In other words, when we're looking at these indicators here, that's the EMA and the VWAP line. So we got an EMA is an exponential moving average, that is the 15. So I use the EMA 15, that's these red lines here. And then I also use the volume weighted average price. Now these are awesome indicators if they're used in conjunction with one another, as well as the RSI. In other words, when we have the volume weighted average price, which is the price expressed, no, correction, it's the volume of the last 24 hours expressed as a price, that is telling us right now that it's at $53. Now the price is pretty much right on top of it. So that basically tells us that it's working as a potential support level if it stays above. Right? We need more confirmation, but if it stays above, it's considered a support. Stays below, it's a resistance. So as you can see, the price kind of just generally stayed underneath. Now, if it breaks above and stays above, that would be confirmation number 1. The other confirmation I look for is the price to be over EMA. And EMA is nice because it's kind of a moving average. A lot of ways, it's similar to a MACD, right? Where you got the prices converging, right? That's a 12 and a 26. I use the 15, and it's right on top of the price action. So what it does, it tells us, okay, price keeps getting rejected right here. This is essentially telling us that that was a bearish trend, right? Now that it broke above, see how it keeps riding the line of the EMA? If it continues to do that, that tells us we're in a bullish trend. So we are hypothetically, or at least more so tentatively, in a bullish trend right now. And now that the price bounced up over a VWAP, I would effectively say that this is a comfortable, good indication of a buy signal. But we do want to wait for a little bit more confirmation, because just because it broke above the VWAP doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay above. And to me, the confirmation I look for would be just say 2 solid green bars, right? Again, some people prefer not to wait that long, and that's okay. But I like to wait 30 minutes to get my confirmation. So in this case here, this candle right here that's forming, we're 6 minutes into the 15-minute candle. It's red right now. If that closes red, that would not be confirmation. Right? They're basically telling us that there's a bearish type of sentiment, and it could be a reversal. But if this red bar here closes green, that would be 2 green bars closing above EMA and VWAP. Okay, so those are just things that I look for. They've been proven to be very helpful and very effective to me over the years, and it just seems to work. And I feel like the longer you wait for confirmation, the more, the better off you're going to be investing, because if you just jump in and kind of hope for the best, you haven't truly found the bottom, then without that confirmation, you might continue to discover there's a lower point, and you'll be stopped out, and you'll have to start over again, having lost XYZ, right? So that's just kind of just something to note and to pay attention to. All right. So that is essentially what I wanted to look at here. I don't really see the point in looking at the 1-minute chart in this scenario, personally, just because it's very, very similar to what we just saw. There's really not much here that we can disseminate, except for the fact that they are making higher highs, right, and higher lows. So we do have some higher highs, right? and the higher lows. So we're no longer chasing the bottom. So that is a good confirmation. You do always want to peek at the 1 minute chart before taking entry, especially if you're using the 15-minute chart more specifically. But if you see here, you can kind of identify those higher highs and higher lows a little easier on the 1 minute chart. And those are also things that you see in bullish trends. The inverse also applies too, of course, when when the price going down, that is essentially lower lows and lower highs. All right, so yeah, just some things to pay attention to. So, to answer your question, if you're here for the prediction, my prediction is that Ethereum Classic won't come any lower. Again, pending Bitcoin not going sub 33,000. If Bitcoin drops below 33 and kind of gets closer to 30,000, we should expect a sell-off for Ethereum Classic. It happened time and time again in the recent past. But if we can get some consolidation from Bitcoin for a couple more days and the price ekes back up to 41, 42,000, and then tests 42,000 and rises above and closes a full candle bar, just say a 1 day chart, 1 day worth of closing above that line, we're going to be in really good shape to see Ethereum Classic take off. And it'll continue to edge its way back up as Bitcoin does as well. But when we have those larger sell-offs like we saw from Bitcoin recently, it tends to be impacted. So I mean, Ethereum Classic is definitely impacted by Bitcoin. Another thing to note too, though, with its average true range from before, with it rising up so high and so fast, it's not a surprise it's as low as it is right now. But I do feel like it's due to be a lot higher. In other words, I do think that $50 is a very affordable, very low price for Ethereum Classic, because it is definitely a good product. I mean, really, if you do your research on the fundamentals, it's really actually got some good things going for it. But the bottom line here is that the average true range should be somewhere in the 80 to 110 range. I've said that for some time. It's only this low because Bitcoin is going sideways and cannot figure itself out, and it's getting manipulated like no other, and it's really just driving the market in a weird way right now. That's pretty common, pretty standard though. If you look at the 4-hour, or correction, the 4-year cycle, we are due to have an increase again soon. Okay, one last bull run to save the year, right? Let us all recover our losses. Anyway, if you find benefit from it, please like and subscribe. Of course, really greatly appreciate that. If you want to, or you're interested in perhaps a signal group, because I have more time to be able to find good entry points, I'm going to have that available in my premium Patreon account very soon. I will kick that off and I'll notify you all through my community tab to make sure you are aware of that. But that'll be available in my Patreon account as a premium option. I also offer consultations too, and I'll include that there as well. Furthermore, my Telegram community, please be sure to jump in to that. Get engaged. We got some really awesome folks in there. You can learn a lot just by kind of being a fly on the wall and reading and watching the posts. Okay. And obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm available through Telegram and otherwise, and we'll be happy to help you out. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.